A passage from chapter 16, Grave Faces. As the days quickly passed by, work became routine, and I began to notice signs that the team had put aside their emotions as they were becoming accustomed to and unaffected by the severity of the crimes we were dealing with. The term body factory came into my mind as we worked through each bag containing remnants of humanity. In the evenings we no longer talked about work. Instead, the priority became finding the blessed places to eat or deciphering the menu and avoiding certain delicacies. Fried brains seemed to feature often. Worryingly, more people talked about feeling homesick and about returning home. At work I opened each bag containing body parts and bones belonging mostly to men, but there are also those of a few women, young and old, and even a few animal bones. Work was becoming routine and quite boring until one morning Brody asked me to clear all the tables and lay out the contents of the bags of washed clothing removed from the victims kept in the store. There was to be an identification afternoon by the mothers of Srebrenica. These brave women, whose men had disappeared on that sunny day in July 1995, had become impatient, having had no news of the fate of their families for 3 years, and formed a pressure group. Because of the publicity they received internationally, the politicians in the West and the UN could no longer ignore them. I wondered if included among these women might be some of the mothers whom I had encountered at the body factory in 1996. After lunch, I noticed some Bosnian police officers shepherding about a dozen women wearing headscarf and long multi-pattern djembe dresses outside the entrance of the mortuary. One or two were already crying quietly. We all stood behind our workstations as the women hesitantly entered the room in silence, some still shading their eyes from the bright sunshine outside. A few winced at the smell of death pervading the room. Brody, with his clipboard, guided them round each table containing a variety of the washed and dried ragged clothing. The quiet of the room was suddenly shattered as a woman let out a scream that seemed to come from the bottom of her soul. It was so loud I felt my guts churning. The woman had recognised a victim's clothing. She became inconsolable as she was led outside by a policeman. Her reaction seemed to spark hysteria among some of the other women, who began to wail and cry in unison. 2 women, I guessed one was in their 40s and the other in their late teens, were escorted to my table by a policeman. The elder of the 2 immediately pointed at a torn vest, a discoloured pair of trousers, and a single shoe. "Karim," she quietly said to the policeman. Then she turned and looked at me with tear-filled eyes, nodded silently, and said, "Mohsin, my son." To hear this woman say the name of a victim shocked me, because before this we had only referred to the victims by their impersonal grave numbers. Now a couple of ragged items of clothing had revealed to me a personality of a once-lived life. The younger woman started sobbing, her shoulders shaking uncontrollably, saying something in Bosnian I couldn't make out, but I felt there was no need to understand what she was saying. As she left the mortuary, I bit my lower lip as I resisted the urge to cry. That evening, only a few of us went out for dinner. The others said they had no appetite. The atmosphere in the restaurant was sombre as we ate mostly in silence. The day's events had brought our focus back to why we were here, and for that reason I was grateful to the mothers for challenging our complacency. End.